Funding for Here and Now comes from the listeners of WBUR Boston and MathWorks, creators of MATLAB and Simulink software for technical computing and model-based design. MathWorks, accelerating the pace of discovery in engineering and science. Learn more at mathworks.com. And Staples, with supplies and services to get business done, no matter where it gets done. From ink and toner cartridges to technology like laptops and networking accessories. More at Staples stores or staples.com.
This is Here and Now. What has 4 scaly legs and spends 90% of its life underground? Still guessing? Here and Now's Peter O'Dowd said it could be your next pet.
Listen, this is the sound of an elusive desert tortoise. Do you hear that? Nah, I'm just kidding. Tortoises don't make a sound, but they are cute.
What's up, buddy? That's a rock. Don't eat it.
Behold Thanos, a middle-aged tort who looks more like an old man stuck inside a hard shell. He's got a reputation around here at the Arizona Game and Fish Department. Tegan Wolf runs the state's desert tortoise adoption program. She says this feisty fella has had a hard time finding a good home.
He's been returned 4 times, so I've just claimed him as mine. He's just very sassy. We don't normally get tortoises that chase people or that are aggressive. It's very, very rare. That's why he is my favorite.
I'm just thinking about a tortoise chasing somebody.
I mean, he moves fairly fast, but you can outwalk him. Like, it's not anything crazy.
Thanos may be cold-blooded, but he's no killer. In fact, he's one of about 300 Sonoran desert tortoises up for adoption this year in Arizona. Wolf says people breed them illegally, end up with 60 or 70 babies in the backyard, and then have to surrender them here. Wolf says the state has never had so many orphaned tortoises at this point in the season.
It's like having a tiny dinosaur in your backyard, and they're always fun. They all have their own personalities. They all enjoy hanging out with people. I get a lot of people that tell me that they like to go outside, like at 6 a.m., and tortoise is out eating, and they come and hang out and have their morning coffee with the tortoise. They're very relaxed animals.
How do they live in a climate where it gets to be, sometimes 120 degrees in the summertime?
Burrows. So you do have to build them a burrow in your backyard so that they are protected from that heat, and because they brumate in the winter. So you won't see them from like November to April.
Now that means something like hibernation?
Yeah, it's like hibernation, but if it warms up like 76, 77 during the day, they come out, lay in the sun, and then they go back in.
What else do they do to live here?
So they don't require a ton of water. We give ours water 2 or 3 times a week. In captivity, it's very common for them to have something called a bladder stone, and that's because they get too much water or they get poor nutrition. It's just a buildup of calcium minerals in their bladder. It's very common in captive tortoises.
Is it true? Now, I've heard that one of the things they might do if you startle one or try to pick one up, that they might actually empty their bladder on you. They might pee on you.
Mm-hmm. They do. That's why we recommend not picking up tortoises in the wild. The captive ones, it's fine because they have access to water. Like, you can always just give them a nice little soak in some water after they do that. But wild ones, if they empty their bladder, the reason we tell you not to do that is because they're most likely going to die after that, because that is their water stores. So they become dehydrated. They only get water when it rains or the little bit of water from their food. So it is very dangerous for a wild one to do that.
Truth is, in the wild, these animals have had a tough time of it lately. There's a type of tortoise that lives in the Mojave Desert of California and Nevada that's officially listed as a threatened species. In some places, its population has fallen 90% since the 1980s. You can blame us humans who've moved into the desert. Our homes destroy theirs. Our roads are black ribbon death traps for the slow-motion torts. And our trash attracts ravens. In this video, a ranger at Joshua Tree National Park explains how the birds love the tender flesh of a defenseless baby tortoise.
And ravens are smart enough to figure out that their beaks are stronger than juvenile tortoise shells. It can take 10 years for tortoise shells to harden enough to protect them from ravens. This means fewer tortoises can grow up and reproduce.
Which is sad, but the animals at the Game and Fish Department in Arizona are doing just fine. Okay, so tortoise in a box.
Tortoise in a box. Here we go.
Tegan Wolf loads an 8-year-old female into a cardboard box. The young lady is about the size of a salad plate, and she's going home with Michael Alexander.
The family, specifically the wife, she's always wanted a turtle or a tortoise since she was a child, so this is a childhood dream for her. So
great.
we finally get to bring a new family member to the house.
Do you have a name in mind?
Well, according to the 9-year-old, this new one is going to be named Torty.
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 Alexander says he's done his homework. The family built that burrow in the backyard so Lil Torty has a place to stay cool in the summer. They've got the salad greens all ready to go. Aside from that, there's not much to do. Torty's not a dog.
The desires and wants and needs of Torty here are probably very different and minimal compared to, say, Fido. Yeah.
Now, I understand Torty might live to be 80 years old. Have you talked to the family about that? Have you prepared for this fact of life?
So Torty is going to be a multi-generational family member. So we've discussed, yes. Torty's going to outlive all of us.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's one desert tortoise with a new forever home. Just 299 or so to go. For Here and Now, I'm Peter O'Dowd in Phoenix.
Sounds like Peter's really trying to come out of his shell there, Robin.
Sticking his neck out there. Where else could you learn the dangers to a tortoise of him peeing on you?
Note to self, never pick up a tortoise.
Never pick. Wonderful. Here Now is a production of NPR and WVUR and Robin Young.
And I'm Jane Clayson. This is Here and Now.
Funding for Here and Now comes from the listeners of WVUR Boston and BetterHelp, committed to supporting mental health through therapy. Clients are matched with one of 25,000 therapists and can communicate via video, chat, or phone at betterhelp.com/public.
This week in This American Life. When Casey's mom died, her dad went on kind of a tear, made a scene in a restaurant. When the cops dragged him out, he urged everyone to throw nuts in his mouth, yelling, "Nut me." When he went to his hairdresser,
pulled out a $20 bill, and it's Andrew Jackson. And I said, I want to look like this.
Dad's weird grief. This week.
Monday evenings at 8 and Saturday afternoons at 3 on Radio IQ. Special event support is made possible in part by Penn Forest Domino's Pizza in Roanoke and the Roanoke Co-op. Thank you for your support.
Radio IQ is broadcasting in digital on WVTF Roanoke, WRIQ Charles City Richmond, WURV Richmond, WVTU Charlottesville, WVTW Charlottesville, WVTR Marion, WISC FM Wise, WQIQ Spotsylvania, WIQR Lexington, WEHC Emory, WLUR Lexington, and in Richmond on 92.5 and Fredericksburg on 94.9. Radio IQ, a service of Virginia Tech.
The 2 p.m. session of Roanoke City Council is hereby called to order, and I will ask our clerk, Ms. Susan McCoy, to please call the roll.
Ms. Sanchez Jones.
Here.
Mr. Pretty.
Here.
Vice Mayor Cobb.
Here.
Ms. White Boyd.
Here.
Mr. Vollison.
Here.
Ms. Moon Reynolds.
Here.
And Mayor Lee.
Here, and a quorum is present. Today, I'm pleased and honored to recognize and bring forth Bishop Delmar Jackson, pastor of Abundant Grace Assembly, to do our invocation. And let me just say, this gentleman and I are very close. Matter of fact, he was my pastor when I first moved up here from Danville. And he was also just promoted by the executive, in the executive election of the International Assistant General Secretary of the Pentecostals of the World, Pentecostal Assemblies of the World, excuse me, Incorporated, PAW. And so I'm proud to recognize Suffolk Bishop Delmar Jackson, and he'll do our invocation, and following the invocation, I'll lead you in the word of prayer. I don't know what's happening, in the Pledge of Allegiance. All right, thank you. We just stand.
Let us pray. Our God, we come before you with humility and with gratitude. We thank you for being God of love who is with us now in this very room. You never leave us or forsake us. Your grace has brought us thus far, safe thus far, and your grace will lead us on. We thank you for making each of us in this room, every person we meet, every citizen of the city, and every city in your image, with dignity and infinite worth. We thank you for the calling you have given every one of us to be good stewards of your creation and to love our neighbors as ourselves. I thank you, God, for these servants of yours, your mayor, your city council, your city manager, the city staff, and other city council members. I give thanks for the way of service they have chosen to take up on behalf of all of us here and the citizens of this city. We all come to this room as complex human beings, carrying burdens, carrying joy and hope, trusting that you alone can hold us together, O God, in your love and in your peace. Help us, Lord, to trust you more than our fears and our wounds and even our accomplishments. We may lean on your everlasting arms. Through the prophet Jeremiah in chapter 22, you remind us that your blessings came on kings who defended the rights of the poor and the needy. Because isn't that what it means to know me, declares the Lord? And so remember also the words of the Apostle Paul writing in Corinthians and Romans and his teachings that those in authority are first and foremost your servants, that honoring you and doing your will is their highest purpose, that any portion of power they enjoy is given by you and can be taken away. And so now we pray that you will be glorified through the decisions of this city council. We pray that we would have the eyes to see how our lives are connected and how our common good is among us. We pray that your kingdom would come in this city as it is in heaven, through your power working in each of us, these your servants. May your truth be revealed. May your light shine brighter, and may the voices of those most silent be heard loud and clear. Defend their cause, O God, through this governing body today. We pray for wisdom, for strength, for courage to do what is right and good for all of us citizens. May we put the interest of others above our own, and may we act with love for the common good. May we be good neighbors, recognizing your image in every person here. We thank you again for this council, our mayor, our city staff, our first responders, our hospital staff, and all those who work to make this city we call home such a wonderful place, with no respect of another's faith, traditions, but in my faith tradition, I pray this now in Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Bishop Jackson, and welcome everybody to our session for this afternoon. We did meet briefly this morning to be brief, and so we're pleased to have you with us this afternoon. Announcements. The Council of the City of Roanoke is seeking applications for various vacancies on council-appointed authorities, boards, commissions, and committees. You know, you can please access, I want you to please access the city's website at www.roanokeva.gov to complete an online application. And let me say that this council really encourages all citizens who want to serve on a board or commission to just fill out an application. And we welcome your willingness to come and help us govern this 7-time All-America city. And if you have any questions, please do not hesitate to call the clerk's office, and they'll walk you through the process, a very simple process. And we want you to come and be a part and work on these boards and committees that we have that do a good job in our city. So, thank you. At 4 o'clock today, Roanoke City Council will conduct 3 interviews, and on April 17th at 4:30 p.m., City Council will conduct 2 interviews to select 2 trustees to serve on the Roanoke City School Board for a 3-year term of office, each commencing July 1st, 2023. So we're going to be having school board interviews today, this afternoon. The 5 candidates that are going to be interviewed are C.S. Jameson, Jacqueline W. Moon, I should have looked at Vice Mayor, and that's these names. Orleans C. Quintenta, Christopher T. Link, and Natasha N. Saunders. They will not all be interviewed. Some will be interviewed tonight, this afternoon, and others will be interviewed on April 17th. And that's when we'll have a public hearing on April 17th to 7 o'clock, and as soon thereafter, as many may be heard to receive citizen comments on the candidate to serve on the city school board, which is a very important board for us. All right, at this time, I'm going to ask Council Member Luke Purdy to join me at the lower podium, and we're going to recognize some people for some work that's been done. All right, we want to acknowledge this week, April 10th through April 16th, 2023, as Community Development Week. And I want to call on Keith Holland. Is Keith here? He must not have got the memo. Keith Holland, our Community Resources Administrator, to join us, but he's not here. But I'm going to ask Councilman Luke Purdy to read the proclamation for Community Resources Week.
got a couple.
It's community development. You can take that.
Oh. I'll read it from your script. Thank you
All right.
so much. Whereas the Community Development Block Grant, CDBG, program through the U.S. Department of Housing and Community Development has existed since 1975 to provide local governments with the resources to develop viable urban communities by providing decent, affordable housing and a suitable living environment, and expanding economic opportunities principally for persons of low and moderate income. Whereas the Community Development Block Grant, CDBG program, has strengthened American communities such as the city of Roanoke, Virginia, by addressing pressing neighborhood and human service needs and creation of affordable and sustainable housing, and having significant impact on our local economies through job creation and retention, physical redevelopment, neighborhood revitalization, and improved local tax base. And whereas the city of Roanoke, Virginia, has effectively administered and customized its Community Development Block Grant, CDBG program, for over 40 years to implement various programs and projects in the areas of affordable housing, economic development, public facilities, and public work improvements, homelessness, and planning that has contributed to the improvement of the physical, economic, and social conditions in our city. Now therefore I, Sherman P. Lee Sr., urge all citizens to join us in recognizing community development programs and the important role that they play in our community, and do hereby proclaim that the week of April 10th through 16th, 2023, throughout this great 7-time All-America City as Community Development Week.
All right, join me in thanking our community development people. Thank you, Councilman.
Thank you.
All right, April 9th through the 15th, we proclaim as National Public Safety Telecommunications Week. And I'm going to call on Ms. Sonia Woman, manager of our E911, and staff to join us here at the podium. And I'm going to ask Councilman Purdy to read this application.
You can present it to them.
I will.
Hold on to this. National Public Safety Telecommunicators Week. Whereas emergencies can occur at any time that require police, fire, or emergency medical services. Whereas when an emergency occurs, the prompt response of police officers, firefighters, and paramedics is critical to the protection of life and preservation of property. Whereas the safety of our police officers and firefighters is dependent upon the quality and accuracy of information obtained from Roanoke citizens who telephone the City of Roanoke E911 Center. Whereas 911 communication officers are the first and most critical contact our citizens have with emergency services. Whereas 911 communications officers are the single vital link for our police officers and firefighters by monitoring their activities by radio, providing them information, and ensuring their safety. Whereas 911 communications officers' impressive skills, knowledge, and experience provide a lifeline to the public and to all law enforcement, emergency medical services, and fire responders, and have contributed substantially to the apprehension of criminals, suppression of fires, and treatment of patients. Whereas the work of these quote, unseen first responders, end quote, is invaluable in emergency situations, and each of these dedicated men and women deserve our heartfelt appreciation. Now, therefore, I, Sherman P. Lee Sr., Mayor of the City of Roanoke, Virginia, call upon all residents to honor the men and women whose diligence and professionalism who keep our city and citizens safe, and do hereby proclaim the week of April 9th through April 15th, 2023, throughout this great 7-time All-America City as National Public Safety Telecommunicators Week.
Mayor asked me to say something. I just want to reiterate what National Public Safety Telecommunicators Week is all about. It is held annually during the second week of April to honor public safety telecommunicators, as stated in the proclamation, for their commitment, service, and sacrifice. This day initially started in 1981 by Patricia Anderson of the Contra Costa County Sheriff's Office in California. In 1994, President William J. Clinton signed a presidential proclamation 6667 declaring the second week of April as National Public Safety Telecommunicators Week. This week is a time to celebrate and thank telecommunications personnel across the nation who serve our communities, citizens, and public safety personnel 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, every day of the year. And I have just a few of our employees with me today, and I just want to recognize them as well. Our Tracy Shelton is our operations administrator. She oversees all of operations. Kentrell Trotter Carter is a communications supervisor, and she oversees a staff of employees on her shift. And then I have Kayla Gilbert with us today as well, and she is our communications officer advanced, and she is part of our training team. This is just a few individuals that work hard day in and day out to make sure that our residents are safe and that our public safety partners are safe as well. And I thank you for this proclamation. I'm going to ask real quick, I'm sorry, we have an NTW committee that puts on a fun event all week long, and they were not able to be here because they are working. And if we could just call their names out real quick, we want to recognize them as well.
Kentrell Trotter, who is here today, Katie Bayer, Nicole Manning, Angela Foster, Paul Wright, and Michelle Tringali. They did a great job. Thank you, guys.
Mayor, do you
Now,
get a
before
picture?
you all leave,
Oh, I was
I'm
going to say,
gonna
I was
give
going to
this
say,
a
yeah, you know, I'm.
photo op, man, photo op time.
Okay, all right.
Always want a good photo op.
And I always do a count of three, so you're ready for me.
Count down.
1, 2, 3. One more. 1, 2, 3. Thank you. Thank you.
All right, council members, before you leave, any comments or thoughts? Mr. Volson.
I recently got to go out and see the E911 Center and interact with y'all, and I'm really grateful for the hard work that you do. When our citizens are calling you, they're calling you at the worst moment, and the professionalism, the compassion that you guys and gals give to our citizens is amazing, and you guys do very, very hard work, and I appreciate everything that y'all do for us here in the city.
Anybody else? Vice Mayor.
So do you like the new center?
Yeah.
The first time I visited 911 was when you all were in your luxurious accommodations downstairs. And going out and seeing the new space, I know how, especially with the intensity of the work that you do, having a beautiful scene to look out on and a very open and bright space is helpful. But please extend our thanks to everyone who works with 911 and our gratitude for everything that you all do to keep us safe and to keep those communication lines open.
Thank you. Thank you. If anyone wants to recognize the dispatcher during National Telecommunicator Week, just let us know. Reach out to them on our social media pages
Great.
just to say thank you. It means a lot.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you very
you.
much.
Thank you.
All right, now I'm going to call on our Fair Housing Board. Is there anyone here from that group? All right, no one's here, just you.
She raised her hand. Come on up.
Well, come on up. Come on up. How you doing? Come on up. And I'll ask Councilman Hurley to read the proclamation.
Fair Housing Month. Whereas the Congress of the United States passed the Civil Rights Act of 1968 and Title VIII declared that the law of the land would now guarantee the rights of equal housing opportunity. Whereas this April 11th, 2023 will mark the 55th anniversary of the signing of the Civil Rights Act of 1968 by President Lyndon B. Johnson. Whereas the City of Roanoke, in conjunction with the Fair Housing Board, has provided a fair housing program for its residents, and today the local community supports fair housing laws. Whereas the Fair Housing Act prohibits discrimination in the sale, rental, and financing of dwellings and other housing-related transactions based on race, color, national origin, religion, sex, familial status, and disability. And whereas, to the prohibitions of the National Fair Housing Act, the state of Virginia includes elderliness, source of funds, sexual orientation, gender identity, military status, and the city of Roanoke includes age and marital status. And whereas, equal housing opportunity is a condition of life in the city of Roanoke that can and should be achieved, and all citizens are encouraged to abide by the letter and spirit of the Fair Housing Law. Now therefore I, Sherman P. Lee, Mayor of the City of Roanoke, Virginia, do hereby proclaim the month of April 2023 throughout this great 7-time All-America city as Fair Housing Month.
All right. Go ahead.
Make sure we have the right one.
Okay. All right, the photo op. You got to take the photo op. Who has the camera?
You want, oh, she's gone. What side you want?
Step out a little bit.
Hold on, please.
Just want to say thank you all very much. I do just want to take this moment. I'm privileged to be able to say we have a lot of work ahead of us as far as our housing and our homeless situation. And lucky me, I have an appointment with the mayor, and I have some things I'm going to talk to him about as far as our Fair Housing Board is concerned and what we as a city may be able to do. Virginia being one of the states that has not chosen to criminalize people for being homeless. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'll say as a former Fair Housing Board chair, thank you for everything that you do. I know that there's a lot of work to be done in equal housing here, and I'm glad that you guys are going to continue to bring that work forward. Thank you, Amazetta.
We're going to do our best.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate you.
Well, we'll hold on to this one for now.
Yes, sir. All right, we have one more final presentation, and not a proclamation, but a presentation to some people in HR who've done a tremendous job over the last few days. And as most of you may know or may not know, we had a job fair. I'm sure you saw the signs all around this city. It was a tremendous success. And I want to recognize our HR folks will come up. John, Angela, and Miss Jennifer White. Come on up. Hey, Angela, I just want you to say a few words to them. I'm going to let John and Jennifer.
Okay, and I know Jennifer may have some words she'd also like to share. But on behalf of the Human Resources team, I do want to thank you for honoring us. We had a tremendous job fair that was held on last week at the Berglund Center, and a big driver of that job fair is Jennifer White, our Human Resources consultant. She really drove this event in support with our Human Resources manager, John Sanders, and so I just want to thank both of them publicly, and certainly our entire Human Resources team. But I also would be remiss if I didn't also thank our colleagues. My colleagues, our department heads were a tremendous force as well behind this and supporting this job fair. Everyone from our Berglund Center, Robin Shawn, Inshaw, Vanessa Bohr with our Department of Technology who supported us, our Parks and Recreation Director, Michael Clark, along with our General Services Director, Jeffrey Powell. Some of our elected officials, City Treasurer Evelyn Powers, they really rallied around this event and really helped support us and help promote this event. And so we had a very successful event, upwards of 756 attendees that participated in the event. And as I understand it, we actually had 5 hires on site at the job fair, and that's our transportation landscape area that actually interviewed on site and actually hired individuals on site. So really excited about that. And this is just the beginning. We're up to 469 applications that have been received as a result of the job fair. So certainly we are hoping to fill a number of the vacancies that we have, but this would not have been possible without the entire city team. So I just want to thank everyone for their support of the fair.
Thank you.
Thank
I had to go down this morning and recognize Jennifer for her fine work, and all of you all know, I seem like I'm going to have my back to you, I want you all to hear it. All of you all know we're known as the Star City. But today, because of her work last week, she is recognized as a star in our city today. So it says you are a star in the Star City. Ms. Jennifer. Now with that, you have to say a few words.
She's prepared. She's always prepared.
Thank you, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and the members of City Council. It is an honor for me to stand before you today. I would first like to thank you for the Star City Award that was presented to me personally by our Mayor, Sherman Lee. Our 2023 Spring City Job Fair would not have been successful with our recruitment champions, which consisted of various talented city employees from various departments represented throughout the organization. Too many to name and me risk not remembering at this moment. But we started our planning sessions on February 1st with a goal of advertising on February 29th, which gave us 30 strong days of marketing. As Angela stated, 756 registrants visited the job fair in person, which does not include those that attended it as a virtual event. Within a 24-hour period, we received 305 applications. As of today, 469 candidates have applied through our applicant tracking system. Normally, we receive 19 applications a day. We received a diverse group of attendees to include, but not limited to, age, race, and gender. Some entered with Timberland boots, while others had a two-piece suit and a suitcase, briefcase. Human Resources, along with Risk Management, implemented a fast-track hiring process. Thank you for the approval of our director, Angela Vernon, which allowed departments to recruit, interview, perform background checks, and DMV checks if needed on the spot. The following departments hosted a table at the job fair: Fire EMS, Parks and Recreation, Treasurer, Finance, Department of Technology, Transportation to include Landscape, Signal Sign Shop, Traffic and Street Maintenance, Fleet, E911, Facilities, Solid Waste, Planning, Building and Development, Stormwater, Police, Library, Sheriff, Social Services, and the Berglund Center. And we would like to give special thanks to RVTV for streaming the event live and interviewing hiring managers on the air. Thank you.
Thank you. And I want to bring up one of the busiest men in this city. John, I want you to have a few words to say.
All right. I just want to say that I'm very fortunate to work for someone like Angela Vernon, and very fortunate to have somebody like Jennifer White on my staff. What Jennifer didn't tell you was that while she was coordinating this job fair, she was also coordinating the teen apprentices for our next teen apprentice cohort, and also getting ready for our summer interns, getting those lined up. So she had 3 balls in the air at the same time. If I could clone Jennifer, I would. But the job fair was a tremendous success, and we're looking forward to having a lot of people come on board to get our numbers up, hopefully. And also, I might point out that Jennifer also coordinated a recruitment strategy for the police department to help them get staffed up from the low numbers that they had. She definitely has a marketing mind. I've said before that if she ever finds out that she can make a lot more money in a marketing firm, we might lose her. So I've been trying to keep her here with us.
Don't push off the door.
No, I don't want to. And let me also say that the mayor here is a mayor for the whole city, because despite being a William Fleming colonel, he has PH colors on today. I wanted to mention that.
All right. Council members, anybody want to say anything to this fine group of employees? Vice Mayor?
Well, I was able to come by for about an hour during the fair, and the energy was great. I mean, there were a lot of people there. They were engaging with everybody, and it's great to hear that there was such a good turnout and such a high response. But thank you, Jennifer, thank you for everything you did, and thanks to everyone who participated.
Good job.
Ms. Sanchez-Jones.
Yes, I just want to say thank you. As Mr. Joseph, I was also there, and I love to see the diversity of the applicants and the people that were interested in jobs and to work for the city. It was great. So thank you for the great job you guys did.
And if I may add, we didn't share, we also had interpreters that were on site. So Jennifer had arranged for that. So if anyone did speak a second language, we had 2 available persons to help with interpretation.
Yeah.
All right, great. Anybody? Ms. Moon.
I just wanted to, since Ms. Vernon brought up that the one behind the scenes was Ms. White, I just wanted to say I loved your planning process. The time and effort showed from, you had the 30 solid days as was mentioned. I love the timing of everything that you was able to pull your plan together. So congratulations on that. Good plan and marketing strategy.
The marketing was excellent.
Yes, very good marketing strategy.
I showed the weekend of the city. Get it out there. Get
We
the word
can't
out
get it
there.
out there. I'm going to have to figure out what
I
they
love
did.
it. That's why I like that marketing strategy, yes.
All right. Let's give them another hand. Thank you, guys. Whoa, come back.
Pictures. She's got in her hand. We'll put.
I know, right? You bet. Went off too fast. Yeah. One. I like zooming in, get good close up. 1, 2. Oh, y'all ready? 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, and 3. This is going to be a nice one. Thank you.
Thank you all. That's it, Lou. We're done. Thank you.
You're welcome. They are using them. That's a good thing.
That's good, that's good.
I'll send them to her right now.
It's always a good feeling to recognize employees for the work that they do. And thank you, Ms. Cowell, for getting that done and hiring people right there on the spot. This is a good, strong message for our city. So I'm real pleased with that. All right, we're now down, Madam Clerk, I think, to hearing of citizens upon public matters. Do we have any citizens signed up today?
We have 2 speakers.
Okay, would you call them in order?
Yes, sir. Frida Cathcart, and each speaker will have 5 minutes.
Good afternoon. Thank you for this opportunity to tell you about an exciting evening I had back on March 21st. I received an invitation to go to the Embassy of Finland for World Water Day Eve. And there I got to hear presentations by world-renowned scientists dealing with innovations with clean water, including how they're addressing and researching forever chemicals, PFAS, which, you know, our own Water Authority has been having struggles with. And it was just an amazing evening. And when the Finnish ambassador welcomed us, he told a story about a Saudi Arabian dignitary that he was talking to. And he said how lucky their country was to have so much oil and so much wealth. And the Saudi Arabian dignitary responded that he would trade all their oil for Finland's clean water. Finland's water is so clean and tasty that it has won taste, there's taste challenges that they do above Evian's premium water, and like it just comes out of their tap. It's just amazing. It was an amazing evening. It was inspirational, and it kicked off the River Run Festival, which goes from March 22nd, which was World Water Day, to Earth Day, which is April 22nd. And people who are traveling to DC can go to the Kennedy Center and see the River Run Festival. There's world-class performances from artists inspired by our world's waterways, immersive exhibitions and interactive workshops, films, writers, and climate experts on rivers and oceans, and a lot more. So I just wanted to make people aware of that opportunity should they go to DC. Another factoid that came out around that time was the United Nations Sustainable Development Solutions Network released its annual World Happiness Report, which rates well-being in countries around the world. For the 6th year in a row, Finland was ranked at the very top. The U.S. came in 15th out of 149 countries on the survey, and it has been years since we have even cracked the top dozen. When asking Finnish people why they're so happy with their country, one person responded, "Finland is full of immersive experiences among nature. Our energizing forests, charming lakes, and vibrant archipelago landscapes are all perfect places to relax, unwind, and get in touch with your inner happiness." Finland has well-functioning and democratic institutions that provide their citizens with extensive benefits and security. The Finns trust their institutions, something that cannot be said of the United States at present. Finland and other Nordic countries don't have the deep class divides and economic inequality experienced by some other countries, including our own. Finnish economic systems are not built on haves and have-nots, a Darwinian model of survival of the fittest that actually encourages class divisions and strife by rewarding winners who often seem to succeed by taking advantage of the less fortunate. The Finns realize that the secret of happiness is found in the kind of egalitarian and trust in their institutions. It leads to a societal cohesiveness and happiness that money just can't buy. And I just wanted to make you all aware of a purchase that happened about 100 years ago when the city of Roanoke had the vision and the foresight to purchase 17 acres that was adjacent to the Fishburne Park land. When they purchased that land, they purchased 3 artesian springs. That was a very good purchase because artesian springs is pure water that comes out of the ground and something that's very valuable. And something that would be good for the city of Roanoke to look at is our itinerary of water sources. Where are they? How can we keep them clean? How can we protect them? And how valuable they are to the prosperity of everybody in the city and beyond. Thank you for this opportunity today. Have a great meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Owen McGuire.
Thank you, members of council, for listening to me today. My name is Owen McGuire. I'm currently president of the Grandin Court Neighborhood Association, and I'm here once again to speak to you about the sale of the Fishburne Cottage, Blackwell House, excuse me. So we had I guess most of you all know what's going on with that. It's been a contentious issue, and pretty much the main issue is the amount of land that the folks want for their coffee shop. Most of the neighbors, they say, good, let's have a coffee shop. If they want to build a coffee shop, fine. But when they find out that they're giving away 1.1 acres of really nice parkland with a house on it for $10, they go, what? So that's taken back. So I think the contention here, the main problem is that amount of acreage. It's been suggested that acreage be cut in half pretty much, which sounds reasonable. Well, the developers say they can't do that because they need the full acreage to leverage a loan. I'm not sure how that works because the acreage can never be developed, but nevertheless, that's what they're saying. We had a meeting with the Van Blaricon developers a couple weeks ago down at the park, and we expressed some of those concerns to them. They couldn't give us a lot of answers, but did agree to meet with us again, probably in the first week in May, before the rezoning would probably be voted on at that time. So we're hoping to get some answers by that time. I don't really think these people even want the acre and a half of land. If they could find the financing to get it done on the half acre, I think they would be, by their own plans that they submitted this past week to zoning, they don't need that. They don't need the land. And that land could be preserved for posterity for future use. Last week, I went to a neighborhood council meeting. There were 6 neighborhood presidents that showed up, or representatives. One of the recurring themes that we had at that meeting was the lack of communication and kind of cooperation sometimes between the city and the residents. And we try to speak, the residents want to have a voice, and certainly I'm having an individual voice now, but as a group and as a community, that's why we have the neighborhood associations. Currently, we have there's a petition floating around that has a few hundred signatures on it asking the city not to rezone this parcel of land till we could work out some reasonable details on it that would be acceptable to everybody. There's a letter here, and you all may or may not be aware of it, but it was from the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board, dated November 16th of 22. And they recommended that the parcel of property not exceed 0.6 acres of land rather than the 1.1. It was an 8-0 vote. The entire advisory board suggested this. So I think that tells you, that there's a lot of people out here that think it's just too much excessive on this land that's given away. Okay. So I guess what I'm asking, possibly, if you all would consider a pause on this consent agenda item till it can be discussed, till we can have further negotiations with the developers, and we can work with them in the future on this. So I guess that's all I have. Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you.
Thank you. And let me just say for our public, which I didn't say in the beginning, is that you're fine. I'm just making an announcement that our city council sets this time as a priority for all citizens to be heard, and all matters will be referred to the city manager for a response or recommendation or report to council as he may deem appropriate. So we're hearing, and normally we issues that come up through this session will forward it, will go to our city manager. So that concludes the hearing of citizens upon public matters. We'll move to our next agenda item, which is the consent agenda. All matters listed under the consent agenda are considered to be routine by the members of City Council and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of the item. If discussion is desired, the item will be removed from the consent agenda and considered separately. I need a motion for the consent agenda.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, I would ask that item C4 be removed from the consent agenda and to be discussed separately, and that's the authorization to file the appropriate application for vacation of a portion of Fishburne Park and to release the public's right to use an approximately 1.1 acre portion of Fishburne Park on real property owned by the city of Roanoke. I would ask that that item be removed from the consent agenda to be considered separately.
All right, is there any other thoughts on that? We don't need a vote on that, do we?
No vote.
Okay, all right, thank you. We'll do that. That'll be noted. Item C4.
Move the consent agenda with the exception of C4.
Second.
Everyone.
Madam Clerk, can you please call the roll?
Yes. Ms. Sanchez Jones? Mr. Pretty?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Cobb?
Aye.
Ms. White Boyd?
Aye.
Mr. Volleson?
Aye.
Ms. Moon Reynolds?
Aye.
Mayor Lee?
Aye, and the consent agenda is approved. Thank you. All right, we're now down to item number 5 on our regular.
No. No, we need
Item
to
C4.
discuss C4, Mayor. If
That's
I
to be
may.
discussed separately.
Yes, yes, sir, if I may have the floor.
All right.
Okay. I would, if we could, I would ask the city manager or either the city attorney to give some clarification with regards to this authorization to file the application, to explain to the public and just for council's verification as well, why we're doing it now instead of before the application was approved for the contract back in December, as well as we know that the applicants have filed for their rezoning for May as well. So I just wanted the public to hear why we are doing it now, why it's on the consent
I'll
agenda.
defer to the city attorney first and then pick up
Okay.
anything that might
All right.
be left with
Sure,
us.
this is normal practice that we've followed. One of the reasons that you'd wait is you want to wait until the proposed purchasers of the property have filed their rezoning application before you would ask to do this. Timing's important. You wouldn't want us to take this action, remove this from the park, and then there not be a rezoning request. You'd want them to be considered an appropriate timing. And therefore, this is normal, that the city asks for authorization prior to filing any zoning or rezoning application. And that's what we're doing. This is routine by nature, but the timing is actually important to coincide with the application filed by the individuals looking to purchase the caretaker's cottage.
And this will come before council at the same time as the rezoning
Yes.
will take
Correct.
place from the applicants.
Correct. They will though, as I understand, they are two separate items. so
Right,
they'll
there will be two
addressed
separate
separately.
items on the
Correct.
agenda.
And that will be true with the planning commission as well. so yes.
Right, okay,
But they will be at the same time.
yes,
True.
thank you.
And more likely than not, you will see the rezoning request first with this second, because again, I would hate to see a removal of a piece of property that then didn't get rezoned, and that would leave us with a hole in the middle of the park.
Right, giving away property. Thank you. That answers my question. Thank you.
All right, is there anything else on this item?
Just need to vote, Ms. Mayor.
I so move that we concur in the request to have this application filed as presented in the report.
Second.
All right. Madam Clerk, can you please call the roll on that?
Yes, sir. Ms. Sanchez Jones? Mr. Pretty?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Cobb?
Aye.
Ms. White Boyd?
Aye.
Mr. Volleson?
Aye.
Ms. Moon Reynolds?
Aye.
Mayor Lee?
Aye. Thank you all.
Thank you.
All right, now we move to our regular agenda, which is item number 5 of the public hearing. 5.1 is the final authorization of the issuance of debt with the Roanoke Economic Development Authority. Chairman Spencer, our city attorney, the spokesperson. There's a resolution.
Move the resolution.
Second.
All right, Madam Clerk, could you please read the title paragraph?
A resolution granting final authorization to the City of Roanoke, Virginia, to contract a general obligation indebtedness in the principal amount of not to exceed $10,500,000. Such general obligation indebtedness to be evidenced by a payment support agreement by and between the city and the Economic Development Authority of the City of Roanoke, Virginia.
And Mr. Mayor, there is a public hearing that has to be held under the Virginia Public Finance Act, which has been duly advertised.
All right, so,
Just open the public hearing.
all right, we'll open a public hearing for, are there any citizens signed up to speak? on this
No,
public
sir.
hearing?
No.
All right, so I'll close the public hearing and ask my colleagues if they have any comments or discussion or things that they'd like to make on this item. Hearing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Ms. Sanchez Jones. Mr. Pretty.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Cobb.
Aye.
Ms. White Boyd.
Aye.
Mr. Volleson.
Aye.
Ms. Moon Reynolds.
Aye.
Mayor Lee.
Aye, and the resolution passes. Item number 6.1 is the request of the Roanoke Valley Resource Authority to present its proposed 2023-2024 annual budget. Daniel D. Miles is the Chief Executive Officer, and this is sponsored by the City Manager. Daniel, is there any comments or anything you'd like to make, or you answer any questions?
Just very briefly, Mr. Lee, on behalf of the Roanoke Valley Resource Authority's Board of Directors, I do thank you for the opportunity to come today before you and the distinguished members of the City Council. I would just very quickly say that the FY24 budget that's been presented to you is a 7.1% increase from our current fiscal year. The executive summary of that is that our revenues are going to be up by about $1 million a year. On the other side of the equation, our expenses are going to be up by about $1.1 million a year. And the net result of that is we have reduced our contributions to reserves by about $100,000. So that's our upcoming budget for next year. And with all of that being said, there is no increase being proposed in the municipal tipping fee rate. There is an increase proposed for the commercial rate of $1.25 per ton. So that's a little less than 2% increase, which we feel is pretty good in the overall economic climate that we're dealing with today. RVRA's board has set a public hearing for the rate changes effective at our June 28th regularly scheduled board meeting. And at this time, I would respectively request the council's consideration of our resolution for FY24, and I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. There is a resolution.
Move the resolution. Second.
Madam Clerk, please read the title paragraph.
A resolution approving the annual budget of the Roanoke Valley Resource Authority for fiscal year 2023 through 2024 upon certain terms and conditions.
All right, is there any discussion among members of council? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Ms. Sanchez Jones. Mr. Pretty.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Cobb.
Aye.
Ms. White Boyd.
Aye.
Mr. Volleson.
Aye.
Ms. Moon Reynolds.
Aye.
Mayor Lee.
Aye, and the resolution passes. Daniel, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Item number 6.2 is a request of the Roanoke Regional Airport Commission to present its proposed 2023-2024 operating budget and proposed capital expenditures. So Mike Stewart, the Executive Director, is the spokesperson. How you doing, Michael? Good. You can really give us an overview, Michael, or just respond to any questions.
The very little here. The good news is always, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Vice Mayor, members of the council, that we are not proposing any deficit that the city needs to worry about. So none of our political subdivisions have to worry about making up a deficit for us. We continue to be positive on the revenue side. Largest revenue producers are still the parking lot and our concessions. We have still a considerable amount of the federal grants for the relief from the CARES Acts, and we'll expend all of it by February of '24. So we're back on supporting ourselves primarily starting in February. Even without the grants this year, we've got almost $1 million surplus, or not surplus, but black ink. So we don't anticipate any issues there. And the airport continues to operate passenger-wise about 15-20% below that 2019, early 2020 peak. That's pretty much the business traffic that hadn't come back that we all see that is not there yet. But we're seeing a lot of increase on the New York traffic now that we've got competition between Delta and American. Allegiant put the seasonal service back into Nashville this spring. Kind of an odd time to do it between February and May, but they got it in, it's running. Not doing tremendously great, but it's doing a lot better from here to Nashville than it is coming this way, so we're doing some advertising down there. But other than that, we continue to push through the master plan process, and we appreciate the members that are part of it. And if I can answer any questions, I'll be happy to.
Thank you.
Mr. Bear, I do have a question, if I may.
Well, do we have to adopt a resolution first?
No, just the first and the second, read the title paragraph, and then take comments.
All right.
Move the resolution.
Second.
Okay. Clerk, Madam Clerk, you read the title paragraph?
Yes. A resolution approving the Roanoke Regional Airport Commission's 2023-2024 proposed operating and capital budget upon certain terms and conditions.
Thank you. Ms. Moon Reynolds?
Yes, sir. Mr. Stewart, I did have one question. I noticed that you have about 13 approved capital expenditure, and you got projects here, 13 projects. I was more interested in, you alluded to it, about the master plan. Has that been completed, or if not, when do you expect that to be completed?
Has not been completed. We've reinitiated it earlier this year. We've actually had our first couple of committee meetings and internal meetings. The first public session will be on April the 27th.
Okay.
The committees will meet a couple of times before then, but the first public session will be at the Holiday Inn. And forgive me, I've got the time on the top of my head, but it's April the 27th, Holiday Inn. On
The 27th?
27th.
Okay, at the Holiday Inn.
Yes.
Is that Ordway, Holiday Inn?
Yes,
Ordway?
yes. And we are intending to submit it to the FAA for their review and approval, hopefully, in the June timeframe.
June, okay. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, any further discussion? All right, Vice Mayor, and I'll go down.
Hi, thanks for being here today.
Certainly.
Would you be able to highlight just a couple of the capital projects that you all are working on currently?
Sure. The most are related to just kind of what I'll call routine keeping the airport up. But the first one on the list that was submitted to you is the what we call the EMAS, the Engineered Material Arresting System, which is on runway 34. What that basically is think about a runaway truck ramp that slows something down. This is on the end right over Peters Creek, and it's about a $10 or $11 million project is what we anticipate it coming in at. But it is beyond end of life and needs to be refreshed and rebuilt to the new FAA standards. So that'll refresh that project. The environmental assessment for the master plan projects are just things that we anticipate with the possible recommended options for the runway extension and the other projects. So getting out and doing some of the preliminary environmental and engineering studies is what that second one is. Rehabilitating the primary runway 624 and the parallel taxiway are two of our high priority projects. The pavement is not going to wait until we get the runway completely redone, so we need to get in and basically do a mill and overlay on it. And then the security fence, you see a lot of the area around the airport there does not have what I consider the BTSA standard, which is 8-foot high chain link with 3 strands of barbed wire on top of it. We're phasing our way around the airport to get that done, so this will be the piece that's closer to Hirschberger. And then we've got a roll-down gate at the TSA checkpoint that needs to be refurbished. It's been there for about 30 years. And then most of the rest is, well, you'll see us going to some of our painted surfaces on the runway, which you don't notice very often, but we're going to the thermoplastic paint with the last bead in it, and the benefit there is it lasts a whole lot longer, so we don't spend anywhere near over a period of time as much time painting runways as we normally do. And then resurface the lighting in the tunnel on Airport Road, and the deck repair, replacing the road through the tunnel. So those are the highlights of it.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I have two questions that relates to the budget. The significant increases that are on the interest on investments is like a 2,000% increase. You explain that line. And the state entitlements, that's a 1,200% increase. It looks like one of them's roughly a 1.8 million increase. The other one's about 5.5 million. So are these sources of funds that come from the state for the state entitlement? And what is the interest on investments?
The state, that is investments that we make locally. I actually brought our finance director, David Jevons, with me in case we need to answer any specific questions. And with your permission, I'd ask him to step up.
Yes, please. I mean, that's a great return, a significant investment.
Yes, the increase in interest income on investments deals with the increased capital that we have in investments right now, as well as increased interest that we're earning on those investments. We're with the VIP fund, is just like the city is as well, and we're recognizing 5% interest on those earnings right now, whereas before, at the beginning of fiscal year 23, when I was preparing that budget, it was about 0.75 of 1% interest at that point in time.
Okay.
So with the Federal Reserve acting on increasing interest rates, it's had a very positive impact on our investment income.
Okay. And as it relates to the state entitlements, is that just, is that more money from the General Assembly or local aviation agency?
It is money that we have for various projects. It's the timing of our projects that we have allocated for using state funds, and it's just that certain projects that we've identified to use for state funds have been rolling up, and that's our intended use for it. That's why that.
Department of Aviation.
Yeah.
I guess, and then my last question is probably well directed for both of you. This is as it relates to the runway expansion. Are you all expecting or hoping for some significant investment at the state level to help cover some of the local share that will put us in a good position for the federal funds?
So without sounding too cagey, I'm going to say that I'm going to wait on the master plan to be finished and have a recommended alternative before we go there, but
that's a good
yes,
politician answer.
So the master plan really is, in a lot of ways you look at it, it is a financial exercise under the Federal Aviation Administration. In an airport our size, you would typically expect that the federal side of that equation for whatever the amount ends up needing to be, about 90% of it typically would come from the FAA or the federal sources. And then the 10% needs to get made up on the local level, whether that be our PFCs that we charge, passenger facility charges that airlines remit to us when they sell tickets, or grants, state grants, local sources, that type of thing. So depending on how big the total picture is, dictates how big that piece might be they ask for the state.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
All right, Mr. Bolson.
Just I don't know, this might be a bit off topic, and if it is, please. But I remember we had gotten some funding for trying to expand a Western flight. Is that money still hanging around somewhere, or?
Great question. Actually, that grant is a small community grant that was about $800,000, if I remember right, from the feds, and then we had matching funds from the local community here, including Roanoke City. That was supposed to have expired in January, February of this year. We actually convinced the FAA to extend it one more year for us. Okay. So I was actually out in Chicago last week meeting with airlines and pitching that grant money to try to help us get Dallas, Denver, or Detroit. A lot of the Asia market's not back yet, so we're not seeing a whole lot of interest in Detroit. But Denver and Dallas are two pretty good markets for us to pitch, so we're out kind of pitching that money to whoever will listen.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Stuart, is there a direct flight from Roanoke to Atlanta?
Orlando?
Atlanta.
Atlanta, yes. Delta runs nonstop to Atlanta several times a day.
Okay. Thank you. All right, any further discussion by members of the council? Hearing none, I'm clerk ready to call the roll.
Ms. Sanchez Jones? Aye. Mr. Pretty?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Cobb?
Aye.
Ms. White Boyd?
Aye.
Mr. Volleson?
Aye.
Ms. Moon Reynolds?
Aye.
And Mayor Lee.
Aye, and the resolution passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, item number 7 on the agenda is reports of city officers and comments of the city manager. Item 7.1 is briefings. We have none. Items 7.1A is the adoption of tax year 2023 personal property tax relief, PPTRA percentage. All right, there is a resolution.
Move the resolution.
Second.
All right, Madam Clerk, please read the title paragraph.
A resolution setting the allocation percentage for personal property tax relief in the city of Roanoke for the 2023 tax year.
All right. Any discussion from members of council?
I do have a question, Mayor, if I may. I'm just trying to understand, this is just for me for understanding purposes. I was reading the report and I saw the relief rate as computed for tax year 2023 is 42.41%. It's a decrease from last year's rate of 45. But as I looked through the measure, I understood to provide 100% tax relief for the qualifying personal vehicles that are valued less than $1,000. I got $1,000 or less. I got that. And then I read the second paragraph. The qualifying personal use vehicle valued at $1,000 to $1,001 to $20,000 will be eligible for the 42.41%. And then I read number 3, and this is where I got lost. Personal use vehicles valued at $20,000 and $1 or more shall only receive the 42.41% on the first $20,000 of value. What is left over? What is that valued at 100%?
Yeah, that's correct. There's
Okay.
there's
I just wanted to
relief.
make sure I was clear.
Yeah, and you all know every year this is probably one of the more confusing things that we do because for the 17th, I think it is, year in a row, we've received from the state the same $8,075,992 in relief to provide relief on the personal property tax. And so then you have to go back and calculate that off of the vehicles that are actually in the fleet, if you will, in the city. And yes, that's how you arrive. And this is the same formula that all municipalities use across the state. But you are correct. That's how that would work in that.
Right,
example.
I just wanted to make sure, in case I had to explain
Sure.
it, I want to make sure I was clear in my explanation.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
All right.
Just to follow up, so the same formula, but other localities do set different thresholds for different rates that they apply. So they may do the first 10,000 may be not 10,000, 100%. First, $1,000 is 100%.
Yeah, because actually the county, if I recall correctly, actually.
I think they have more brackets.
Yeah, they don't actually exempt, I think, below, I'm trying to remember now, I'm going to get in trouble if I start talking about this, and I don't know if I was looking at the commissioner to see if he knew, but I believe there's a cutoff different with the county where their lower valued vehicles have a different assessment, not the rate, but actually the way in which they treat the rebate with it.
Oh, yeah,
But I
they
don't know
changed
what
how
those
they're
are.
assessing
Yeah.
their cars.
So you're correct. I think that the localities can make those adjustments as they go along. The general way in which you calculate the percentage is the same, but where those thresholds are can deviate from municipality to municipalities.
And while it was noted in the report that this is a decrease from last year and we get the same amount of funds, is because we're seeing a leveling out in the assessed values of these vehicles.
Correct. We are not seeing the repeat of what we saw last year in terms of values across the entirety of the fleet present in the community. Now, there are certainly vehicles that are, each vehicle class is kind of reacting a little bit differently, but overall, we're not seeing what we saw last year.
And is this a decrease from what was adopted originally last year, or is that higher number from 2022 after we,
this should be the original. This comparison,
put in the additional
this
funds.
comparison is off of the rate not that was originally adopted for relief, not tied to the rebate. Correct.
It's
Yeah, once
not
the-
tied to the rebate.
Yeah, once the rebate was granted, then that rate changed in here. So this comparison, so the 45.9 is what the action you took last year as a council at this point in time. Later, we came back and actually rebated. We
So it would
created
have
rebate
appeared a
associated.
higher percentage for some persons. Okay, just wanted to make clear on that.
And Mayor, just want to piggyback in on what Councilmember Pretty said. With regards to that, also the measure mentions that all other vehicles which do not meet the definition of qualifying, including but not limited to, would be your business use vehicles, your farm use vehicles, motor homes, etc., will not be eligible for any form of tax relief under this program.
Correct, and that's
Correct.
the way the state program is structured, so yes.
Right.
Yep.
Just wanted them to know they don't get this
Yep.
little percentage decrease.
I would just ask that before we make adoption, if our commissioner has any thoughts to share. If not, I know he's being called on. He doesn't have to, but
Since he took the time to come, do you have anything to say?
Commissioner LaFountain,
Yeah.
I think sometimes we've been calling him LaFontaine.
Yeah. Commissioner Ryan.
Thank you, members of council. I don't really have anything to add. Been working with the Department of Finance to kind of hone in on this number fairly well, and this appears to be landing right where we need to be landing. And as both council members Moon Reynolds and Pretty pointed out, the net effect that we ended up providing last year between relief and rebate was, again, driven largely by this unusual spike in used vehicle values that has not been repeated this year. Used vehicle values are on average down between 15 and 25%. You'll see the overall, with the overall fleet of vehicles in the city, as newer vehicles get more expensive, that will generally push numbers up, but you have the opposite effect with depreciation of vehicles happening, and that's usually a much larger measure.
So said alternatively, based on this, we have a fair increase in the values that isn't something out of the ordinary for a typical year.
Not, well, for a typical year. What's typical anymore? So, based on market conditions and based on my experience prior to being commissioner working in auto lending, what we're seeing right now is more of a reversion to the mean, where vehicles depreciate steadily versus, again, popping up in value when there's a choke up in supply.
So you
All right.
would, I was just going to piggyback on that, so you would say that was just something, an anomaly, and we would not expect that to be a trend?
It was an aberration. I would definitely call it an anomaly or an aberration. It was
Okay.
not a normal thing.
Madam Clerk, call the roll, please.
Thank you.
Mr. Pretty?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Cobb?
Aye.
Ms. White Boyd?
Aye.
Mr. Volleson?
Aye.
Ms. Moon Reynolds?
Aye.
And Mayor Lee.
Aye, and the resolution passes. Item 171B, is the authorization of a bus shelter encroachment located at 1420 Melrose Avenue Northwest. There's an ordinance.
Move the ordinance.
Second.
All right, Madam Clerk, please read the title paragraph.
An ordinance allowing a bus shelter encroachment requested by the Greater Roanoke Transit Company doing business as Valley Metro into the public right-of-way adjacent to city-owned property located at 1420 Melrose Avenue Northwest, between 14th Street Northwest and 15th Street Northwest, bearing official tax map number 2222501, known as Melrose Park, and which bus station will be located within the city right-of-way upon certain terms and conditions, and dispensing with the second reading of this ordinance by title.
All right, discussion for council?
Just a comment.
Ms. Moon Reynolds.
Thank you. I noticed in the report, and I just want to just say thank you to the Roanoke Valley Allegheny Regional Commission for applying for the HUD Community Development Block Grant to facilitate the installation of bus shelters in low-income neighborhoods. and that they worked in collaboration with Valley Metro and the City of Roanoke Transportation Division to identify this location, which is in the Loudon Melrose neighborhood, located near Melrose Park. I just want to just call that out as a comment.
And
Thank you.
And there will be, the grant allows for the construction of 3 different shelters, so this is
So it's
one of
3,
those.
okay, thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Mr. Kelly, on that note, did we just give up on the one at Valley View, or is that, can we still have further discussion on that?
We're always having discussion on that one, so. yeah.
Well, I know, we're always having discussion, but I mean, are we making any progress?
No, I mean, the issues remain the same there in that it's really tied up with the ownership for who owns the Sears building, because it goes, the right-of-way, that road, Ring Road is not public right-of-way, it's a private road, so their property line runs all the way to that extent. And until we can secure right-of-way from them, we really don't have any chance of being able to
Do
place it.
we have any ideas on what could be done? I just hate riding by there, seeing people standing out there in the rain. It's very disheartening.
You know, the mall ownership, I think, has been interested in it. Walmart has been interested in it, but the owners of the property have to date not been interested in that.
Do we have contact with them? Do we know where they live?
We know where we can find them.
Yeah, we know who they are, so yes, yes. And it's probably been a while since we've had contact with them, because if you remember, part of it was tied up in the sort of the bankruptcy that Sears was going through, and that changed hands since that time. But we have had conversations with the new owners, but I don't know how recently. And I'll talk with Kevin again and see.
Yeah, I
when
wish
it
we
is.
would have some,
Yeah.
thank you. I wish we'd have some follow-up conversation about that.
And in this case, money is not an issue either. We actually have money for the
We've had
project
money
as well.
for some
Yeah.
time, and it's just kind of, I just don't understand why we can't make progress, but I would appreciate a follow-up.
Sure, we can do it. Yep.
Thank you. Thank you for bringing that up. Yeah, I just keep wondering.
All right, Madam Clerk, call the roll, please.
Ms. Sanchez Jones? Mr. Pretty?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Cobb?
Aye.
Ms. White Boyd?
Aye.
Mr. Volleson?
Aye.
Ms. Moon Reynolds?
Aye.
Mayor Lee?
Aye. And the ordinance passes. Thank you. Item number C is the execution of an additional amendments to the contract in connection with the Juvenile and Domestic Relations Court Office and Sheriff Security Station renovation. For the resolution.
Move the
resolution.
Second.
All right, Madam Clerk, please read the title paragraph.
A resolution authorizing the city manager's issuance and execution of additional change orders to the City of Roanoke's contract with Wall Construction LLC for additional construction services for the Juvenile and Domestic Relations Court Office and Sheriff Security Station renovation project, and authorizing the city manager or his designee to take such actions and execute such documents as may be necessary to provide for the implementation, administration, and enforcement of such contract as amended.
All right, any discussion by members of council?
Mr. Pruden.
All right, Mr. President.
Just that I'm sure other members of council, this being on the sheriff's station, not the court portion of it, hopefully other members of council have had the opportunity to tour the jail as recently as I have. I think most other people are able to get there before me, and seen the station, seen the state of these stations and how they're used to help people move through the building, and their ability to upgrade them, I think, is very necessary. That's actually where my question came earlier from regarding parking, because when I was in one of the elevators, something kind of scared me a little bit, and I thought, how much does it cost to replace one of their elevators? And there might be something to consider as this comes up this afternoon. But I know that this work is very much needed, and we have a lot of work across the city, but I think that this is necessary to be done, and thankful for City Manager for putting this together and for City Council for considering it.
And you all will remember when we did the CIP tour, this of course was before a couple of you are on council. This was one of the kind of significant parts of the project over in that area to really significantly increase security for the building. So even though it resulted in a change order to be able to accomplish that, it was definitely money well spent to get the facility that we needed.
All right.
Just wanted to add on, if I could, do we have an idea of when the project will be completed?
That's a good question.
Actually, it is.
Oh, it is?
There you go.
We issued final acceptance last week.
Okay. Just got some fix up. Okay. Okay.
Madam Clerk, call the roll, please.
Ms. Sanchez Jones? Aye. Mr. Pretty?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Cobb? Aye. Ms. White Boyd?
Aye.
Mr. Volleson?
Aye.
Ms. Moon Reynolds?
Aye.
And Mayor Lee.
Aye. The resolution passes, and now I call on the city manager for any comments he may have.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I have 3 items that I wanted to raise in my comments. One of those is I wanted to acknowledge, and this has been out, we've provided this information to you previously. The media has done a good job of highlighting this, but I wanted to actually, again, bring some information forward relative to the Healthy Housing Change Agent Award. So this is the award that Vice Mayor Cobb traveled to Washington, D.C. to the National League of Conference, congressional conference that was going on to receive on behalf of the city. This is, you may recall, this is a grant in recognition of the award that we received, the grant that we received from the Department of Housing and Urban Development for $2 million. This is being used to remove lead and other kinds of mold and other kinds of things in homes in our community. We are actually, this recognition from the National League of Cities is the first. We were the first folks to get this far in the program, and so that is why there was that acknowledgement for that as well. And I wanted to highlight that, thank Vice Mayor for picking this up for us, and also Keith Holland and his staff for the work that they have done with this as well. So certainly wanted to acknowledge that. And then if Angie wouldn't mind, so thank you. The other item I wanted to share with you also comes from the National League of Cities. And some of you will remember that we've provided this link to you also. You've seen it, but we'll play this here publicly. So part of the reason for the congressional conference is to actually share with the National League of City members and the members of Congress the work that are going on inside cities and counties counties and towns across the country. Obviously, in the last couple of years, one of the most significant programs that has been underway with congressional support has been the American Rescue Plan Act, or the ARPA projects, and they asked several weeks ago if they could come to Roanoke to be able to record the activities that we're doing here locally with our ARPA dollars, so that they could use those at the conference, and they will be using this in their conversations with members of Congress to highlight how communities all across the country are actually performing transformational projects using those ARPA dollars. So I'd like to show you the video as we play through here, and this again was played at the conference and is now actually out, I know at least on their social media accounts, and will be used again in their interactions with members of Congress.
Well, I remember standing with the mayor and the city manager and some other city officials for a press conference in the north lobby of our municipal building, and we were all awaiting word from Governor Northam, who eventually said that we're closing the schools, every school in the Commonwealth, for the next 2 weeks. And that's when we started thinking about what do we do as a city to respond to this, what resources are going to be available, and how do we bring people together.
We had people from all sectors of our community, lawyers, doctors, lay citizens, neighborhood leaders, all of those people, educators, to come in and talk to us in a round table way of telling us what should we do with the funds. And that made it possible that we could go to our citizens, we can get things done, not have to wait and not get caught up in sometimes the bureaucracy.
Well, the great thing about the ARPA dollars is that it allowed us to be able to help small businesses like this one get out ahead of some of the issues that they saw coming out of the pandemic, primarily tied to things like employment retention and supply chain issues.
I am a retired international flight attendant, and I've had this business now for 20 years. We lost so much money during COVID, and I didn't know what to do. When you are in this game for yourself, that's one thing, but when you have employees counting on that money, even though it might not be that much, it just makes you feel responsible. And extra $5,000 goes a long way. So that money helped us stay afloat.
A clean, safe, and welcoming downtown is really key to having a vibrant city. The program is an 8-person staff providing over 300 hours per week, so it is an expensive program, but very much well worth it. Something that we've been looking at for a long time, and the money that the city provided through the ARPA funding was huge in helping us get there. So the program launched on September 15th, so it's been less than 6 months that the program has been going. In that time, the ambassador team has collected over 1,000 bags of litter, removed over 800 handbills, stickers, and pieces of graffiti around downtown.
During the pandemic and post-COVID, downtown Roanoke experienced a rise in the unhoused population, people hanging out down here and staying down here. So as the outreach worker, I bridge the gap. I'm the conduit between those providing service, the agencies down here, and the homeless. So I develop relationships with the unhoused, speak to them, assess their needs, and they verbally tell me what they need at times, and then I base what they have to say on what these organizations and agencies down here provide.
These funding dollars are enabling us to really revitalize this community, the Belmont Fallon target area community, and take structures like this that no other developer will touch and really revitalize them and put families who are invested in the community into these homes. The family that's going to move in here, it's a mom with 3 children, and the mom is going to school to become LPN, and they are 3 kids, and they're very excited to put down roots and to move into their finished home.
The ARPA grant has allowed us to revitalize, just like this house right here, 18 houses in the southeast and northwest communities in Roanoke. Her backstory is that she was living in substandard conditions and one day got up from her bedroom and fell through, literally, her floor and the ceiling of the room underneath, and just said, I can't subject myself or my daughter to these risks anymore. Found the Habitat program and went through a very rigorous review process because we have home buyers coming in cohorts, and she has turned out to be just a model and an exemplary homeowner and a home buyer. It's been fantastic.
Goodwill is partnering with the City of Roanoke as well as for-profit and nonprofit organizations as well as community stakeholders to really reimagine a new community center here at Goodwill. The community center is going to include 4 elements: a full-service community grocery store, a wellness center, a banking center, as well as an adult high school. Without the 10-man ARPA funding, this project would not be possible.
Had those dollars not come through, we would have had to make some significant cuts in our budget, which would have affected the delivery of essential services. It probably would have detrimentally affected our credit rating as a city and any ability to have reserve funding. I know that there were some cities who were on the verge of bankruptcy because of lack of access to these funds.
So again, this video was played at the conference and will be used throughout their efforts to really, in effect, thank Congress for the support that was provided to every municipality that was able to do programs like that as well. I do want to thank, obviously, the members of our advisory panel. As you all know, every project that you saw up there was the result of a public engagement process along with dozens of others. And so those ideas came from our citizens about what projects that we would support. I also want to thank Carol in our office who shepherded the TV crew around, handled the logistics and getting everyone around. And I think RVTV actually provided some of the footage that you saw as well. So certainly want to thank them for their participation in this as the film crew came in from National League of Cities. So wanted to highlight that as well. So thank you, Angie, with that. And then the last item that I have wanted to, and you all know, and so folks will see obviously at the end of your agenda today, you will be recessing this meeting to go into what's referred to as a workshop, very similar to what we do for our retreats, where If you remember at the last retreat, we had an extended conversation regarding homelessness, and in this case, on April 10th, we will be conducting the same kind of workshop where the council will hear from a variety of different folks regarding our gun violence prevention framework. And as you all know, that focuses on prevention, intervention, and enforcement. So there will be discussions on each of those areas, each of those categories. That again will be on April 10th at 1 o'clock at Berglund Hall at the Berglund Center. We have confirmed that it will be, with RVTV's help, we will be live streaming it as well for folks who are unable to attend at that time as well. And again, you'll be recessing, and then the agenda will be posted that will provide a little bit more. And before the end of the day, I'll give you kind of the sort of the draft agenda so that you see that as well. But wanted to highlight that, and again, I know you'll mention that at the end of the meeting as well. Just wanted to kind of mention what that was and how we'll be proceeding with it. And with that, those are the updates that I had. Thank you.
Mr. Bayer.
Yes. Yes, ma'am.
Yours truly again. Bob, could you also share with regards to the Gainsborough Hub plan? I believe there is a final draft being presented, as well as the one on the Eureka Park for the, I think it's for the residents to learn more about the future of the center at a public hearing. If you could share more information
Absolutely.
on those.
Absolutely. So both of those actually, ironically, are also ARPA funded. Some parts of them are ARPA funded projects. You may recall that we had, with your help, we had approved funding, and I actually hired a consultant to work with our neighborhood centers plans, and that was brought to you all a few months back and was approved. Separate from that, by the same consultant, was a plan focused on the Gainsborough area, which we referred to as the Gainsborough Hub plan. That was also in partnership with the National League of Cities, where we had received a grant to assist in that effort as well. That work has concluded, and so they've been working with the neighborhood, and that's going to be presented at the Gainsborough Library on April 11th, and I think it starts at 6:30 there as well. And I believe it too will be live streamed so that if folks are unable to participate in it. The expectation is then at some point in May or June, we'll be back here with you all, review that plan and accept its approval of it. There are ARPA funds dedicated to implementing that plan, as well as, again, some other grant funds that we'll be doing. So shortly after that, we'll start that process of implementation. The other meeting is actually the Eureka Recreation Center. Of course, as you all know, we have $13 million budgeted currently for the replacement of the current Eureka Recreation Center. And so the design team that has been hired to do that work has been meeting with the community a couple of times and have concluded their work. They're ready to actually present to the community the conceptual design and move into actual construction documents. So they will be having that final meeting, and I actually don't have the details in front of me for that. Ms.
That one
Marinos, do you
is
have that?
April this 11th as well, and at the same time, 6:30, and this one will be at the Melrose Branch Library Community Room.
Thank you.
At the same time,
Yeah.
yes, unfortunately,
I know,
yes.
but we already said
I
we
know.
weren't gonna do that again.
Yeah,
but we did it
they're
again.
doing it again, and
Yeah,
both will be
these are
live
both,
streamed.
these were both scheduled by two different consulting firms.
So they had no idea.
Yeah, and so that was part of the reason why we're live streaming them, so in case folks are unable to make those, any one of those two, and so.
Is there any
we'll
way
be-
that they can reach out to you, Mr. Cowell, before they schedule those, so that we don't have that conflict? Because there are some of us who would like to
Work
attend.
with the staff to
Yeah,
make sure,
the,
yes.
yes, we
In the future,
typically, yes, we have
Yeah.
tried. Matter of fact, one coming up on the Washington Park pool, I've made it clear that we need to make sure we avoid any conflicts associated with that. We don't have a date set for that one yet.
Because unfortunately, looking at both of these are both inner city,
Yep.
and they're affecting almost the
Probably the
same
same
people.
community,
It
yeah,
is, it's
that's why we
affecting
said
the
we-
Yeah,
Northwest
and
community.
I think the
That's sad.
Gainsborough, and I'm trying to remember, and I don't know, Wayne, you might know, I think the Gainsborough one is concurrent with their neighborhood meeting.
That I'm not sure.
Okay.
Maybe that's what they were trying to do, is to coordinate it.
Yeah, but
But I-
unfortunately with the one
And
for
and again, in the case of the
Parks and Rec.
Gainsborough one, it will come here. In the case of the Eureka one, there is no kind of follow-on sort of action required by council. Once the design is ready to proceed, then they'll actually work on the construction documents. That'll take a couple of months to actually go through those construction documents. This, of course, is all with anticipation of having the new Eureka Recreation Center complete and open for business before the end of '24. As has been indicated in those community meetings, and as we've shared with you all, the existing Eureka Center will stay in service all through that period of time. So there won't be a loss of service with the Eureka Recreation Center as we go through the construction of the other facilities.
Mr. Cowell, will we see the conceptual drawings?
Absolutely.
Before they go to, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I see where it says the presentation of the schematic designs and the additional project details with an opportunity for questions to follow. So those that are able to attend in person will be able to see it and ask questions at the actual meeting versus those who are just able to just see it online.
Yep, and we'll get that information to you all as well.
We'll get it beforehand, okay.
Yep.
And those that are unable to attend and just able to watch, will they be able to just contact Parks and Rec?
Yes.
Per se, and just offer their questions or concerns?
Yes, and actually
Yeah.
the consultant in each of those previous meetings, and I'm sure they'll share this at the meeting as well, they have contact information also.
Good.
They can go directly to the designer as well. So,
That's
yes.
good, in case they're not able to attend in person.
Excuse me.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Any other questions for the city manager? All right, then we will move on to item number 2, city attorney. Request for authority to acquire 0 Aviation Drive Northwest, official tax map number 6650103 from LMR Land Company LP through the court-appointed special commissioner. And there is one measure and ordinance.
Move the
Move
ordinance.
the ordinance. Second.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, will you please read the title paragraph?
Yes. An ordinance providing for the acquisition of real property located at 0 Aviation Drive, bearing Roanoke official tax map number 6650103 from LMR Land Company LP through the court-appointed special commissioner in satisfaction of delinquent real estate taxes and nuisance abatement costs owed the city of Roanoke by LMR, authorizing the city manager to execute appropriate acquisition documents and dispensing with the second reading of this ordinance by title.
Thank you. Tim, do you want to say anything about this before we take questions?
Just real quickly, this is something our office, David Collins, has worked with staff in acquiring the property over on Aviation Drive. Many of you have received numerous calls regarding the activities that have taken place on that property. This acquisition will allow us to address those activities, clean up the property, better landscape so that there's greater visibility and ability to address issues that arise on the property. So we've worked with City Manager's Office, with Stormwater, with Police Department, host of others in Public Works on the acquisition. We'd hope that you might approve the acquisition of this property.
Thank you. Bob, do you have anything you want to add before we take questions?
I will just say thank you to Tim's office and Mr. Collins for his assistance on this. This will help greatly in addressing the challenges that we've had in that location. So,
Great.
thank you.
Ms. Monreals?
Thank you. I think Councilmember Whiteboard would also agree with me. This is over in our neighborhood. For those who want to actually have a landscape, I guess a point of reference would be next to the Krispy Kreme, across from Grandview Village, the BP, going around to Valley View. This area that we have been watching and have had issues with for some time. So I would like to personally thank the city manager as well as the city attorney for doing their due diligence on acquiring this property so that now we will no longer have, hopefully no longer have any homeless encampments in that area whereby the airport is. So when we do have people coming in, flying in for business or for pleasure, they will not see a eyesore in that area, and that we will be hopefully landscaping the area as well, which is a thoroughfare off of Hirschberger, going toward Cove Road, as well as Williamson Road. So thank you again, appreciate it.
Yeah, and I think it is also important, and I know you all know this, to point out as well that the HAT team has actually been successful in getting some of the folks that have been at those encampments into housing. So this is kind of a two-prong approach, which we'll continue to work with the individuals that are at those camps to get them into services and into housing, while at the same time making sure that the camps are cleared when necessary.
Yes, thank you for that as well.
Good job.
And I would just add to that, the least of these ministries has done some extensive outreach there as well, and I want to thank city staff. I'm not sure they were the ones who always did the cleaning, but I think there have been at least 2 or 3 significant cleanups done, and so I want to make sure we thank our city staff for helping oversee that. Yes, Peter?
Just one question. Oh shoot, I just lost it. Give me a second, yeah. I just wanted to clarify for the public, how much are we paying for this acquisition?
Clarify,
We-
share.
Share, clarify.
I'll let David sort of explain. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what it was,
Exactly.
the
What
delinquent
we're actually acquiring, David serves as special commissioner. He's been appointed by the courts, and we're acquiring it through the tax program. David's done a wonderful job on that for years, and if you've read through my monthly report, you'll also see that we're going to take on additional help so that David can focus on issues such as this and code enforcement, as well as issues for the land bank, while we are still able to have our tax sales on other properties. So, David?
Mayor Lee, Vice Mayor Cobb, members of council. We are normally with these properties, we have to sell them at public sale. But however, using a provision of the state code, we are able to acquire this property and convey it directly to the city of Roanoke in lieu of sale at public auction. And in this case, there are a number of delinquent taxes that are owed on the property, as well as nuisance abatement liens for the costs that we've incurred to have to clean up the property. The owner of the property is a defunct entity, and the property serves as a retention basin. So because the owner of the property is scattered amongst 7 winds someplace, they are not doing anything with the property. So that just leaves it to the city to routinely clean it up, as we have been doing over the years. And in the meantime, taxes remain delinquent on the property. So using this code provision, we are able to acquire the property and convey it to the city of Roanoke in lieu of selling it at a public auction. And that's what we're doing here. Thank you for your support.
What was the amount of the delinquent taxes?
The amount of delinquent taxes, the property's only assessed at $8,500. So the taxes have been relatively low over the years, but have remained unpaid for a long time. Approximately 5,000, between 5 and 8,000. But the cost of cleanup that we've had to incur, which make a nuisance abatement lien on the property. The most recent cleanup Ian is here with stormwater, but I believe it was approximately $10,000.
Okay.
And we've had to do that a couple of times, over the years. And by taking ownership of it, we can take actions to secure it and hopefully prevent such massive cleanups from having to take place again.
So as council
it's
can
over
see,
$10,000.
we can actually save money by acquiring it and then be in better control. And that is one of the things that we're going to look to work with city administration, Bob, and code enforcement moving forward to find those creative places where we can take property that's not being properly used and through this process acquire it and put it into better use.
I agree with that.
That's really good. And Ms. Moon Reynolds is correct. People are always calling, wanting to know why wouldn't we clean it up and try to explain to residents that we don't own it. That was a challenge. So this is going to be very helpful as far as being able to control it and maintain it. Thank you.
Thank you, David. All right, any other discussion? All right, Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Ms. Sanchez Jones.
Aye.
Mr. Pretty.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Cobb.
Aye.
Ms. White Boyd.
Aye.
Mr. Volleson.
Aye.
Ms. Moon Reynolds.
Aye.
And Mayor Lee's out. Thank you.
All right, and the ordinance passes. Do we need to take the walk-on item at this point as well?
Yes, that will be under item 10.
Okay.
If we could add that resolution.
All right, I'll come to that. Item 8 is reports of committees. We have none. Number 9, unfinished business. We have none. So we're at item 10, introduction and consideration of ordinances and resolutions. And Tim, do I call on you for this?
Or Mr. Pretty
Or Mr. Pretty?
can call, since he was the one as chair of our legislative committee who
This is a
recommended.
recommendation from the legislative committee that met
Yes.
this morning. Mr. Pretty?
This is just a reminder to people who may just be tuning in or did not watch this morning. The Legislative Committee met for the first time this morning, reviewed the relative success of their past legislative agenda and current status of items in the General Assembly. One of those was the effort to make the Virginia Museum of Transportation into a state agency, which is currently being considered whether or not to be included in the conference report to be adopted for the governor's signature. That this measure right here would request that the budget conferees just include language in there that was already included in the House and passed by the Senate that would seek a study so that we would have further insight onto what a state agency would look like, what's its feasibility, what would be its funding structure. There would be no work done this year to make it a state agency, but to seek further feedback on that. I just have a parliamentary inquiry on this. Because this is a recommendation of the legislative committee, does it still need, does it need a motion and a second? How does?
If we could have a motion, a second, read the title paragraph, and then a vote.
I say move the resolution.
And I second it.
All right, Madam Clerk, will you please read the title paragraph?
A resolution supporting 2023 General Assembly legislation, establishment of a Virginia Museum, an establishment of the Virginia Museum of Transportation as a state agency and educational institution under the Commonwealth of Virginia.
All right, any further discussion? All right, Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Ms. Sanchez Jones.
Aye.
Mr. Pretty.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Cobb.
Aye.
Ms. White Boyd.
Aye.
Mr. Volleson.
Aye.
And Ms. Moon Reynolds.
Aye.
And the resolution is adopted. Thank you. Item number 11 is motions and miscellaneous business, inquiries or comments by members of council. Mr. Pretty?
I have two quick items. The first one, scooters, getting lots of inquiries on scooters. My understanding is we have not changed anything regarding where scooters are allowed to operate. I know because the operator has changed from Lime that there may be an issue as it relates to geofencing, and there are portions of the Greenway that are considered public road. So they have to be able to operate on there, but I believe that they're now operating on part of the Greenway where they weren't before, and it might be just because of an operator change. And so,
We had a new entry into the market, and you want
Mr. Chittum?
Yeah.
just if any efforts are going to be done to help limit that, because separately, I know that City Council has approved electric bikes on the Greenway, but nothing's been done yet as it regards scooters.
So with scooters, as part of their permitting program, they're required to geofence off all parks, including all of Mill Mountain Park. So they can't even use either of the roads that go up to the top of the mountain. Also, all greenways with one important and busy exception, the part that we allow cars on already. And that's the part that runs from roughly where, from Wasena, the crossing into Wasena, I think it's when it actually.
On Wiley Drive.
Yeah, and then it goes over to actually from Wiley Drive, if you're going backward, over to River Rock in that area there. So that's where the road parallels the Greenway. The geofence is not precise enough to
limit them, right?
Keep them off the part that cars can also go on. And so I confirmed with them today that they do have that geofence Now, what you will see is you will see scooters in areas that have been geofenced off, and they're doing about 1.5 miles an hour. Takes all the fun out of it. So I'm just going to confirm with buying a scooter ride and going out there to make sure that that's actually got everything geofenced off. But they did confirm they adopted. We did one geofence, and Lime adopted, Bird adopted, and Spin has confirmed that they indeed also adopted it. So nothing has changed in terms of the rules that we have and where they can go, where they're allowed. So we have one discontinued. Lime has moved out of the market. Spin has come in.
And I have one other item. I don't know if anyone had input on this current item.
Mr. Robinson.
One of the complaints we get a lot from citizens is that these scooters are kind of tossed about when they're left. Is there any way, I know when I lived in DC, we had like corrals where basically you could only leave your bike or your scooter in a certain area. So it couldn't be anywhere in downtown. You'd have to go to one of the corrals that's down in downtown. Is there any way to work with our partners, our scooter partners on doing something like that?
Mr. Vollison, we are going to do that in downtown.
Yeah.
We're going to pilot about 3 or 4 or 5 different locations and go from there. But yeah, it's something our transportation division is working on, and we intend to do that very thing. Another thing that we do is when it starts to get out of hand, which it has, we throttle back their numbers. And so kind of keep an eye on the behavior of where there's 2 things that happen. One is where does the scooter company deploy them, and then the other is where does the user leave them. And so we do have a great deal of influence with this scooter company to get them to put them in the right place. And so less so, it becomes a public information exercise to try to get people to put them back in the right place. So that's a little bit more of a challenge. And of all, in trying to manage the scooter program, of all the things that we thought could go wrong, we're down to basically that main issue of sidewalk blocking, just kind of like what looks like chaos out there when they get knocked over and they're blocking a ramp and things like that. So we are in frequent communication with the scooter companies to make sure that they keep a handle on that.
Thank you.
But that's a great question.
On the scooters, and I'm sorry, and I looked over at Mr. Cowell because I have to say this. I told you so. We knew this was going to happen, and I told them it was going to happen because I had just gotten back from Prague, and they were all over the place. It was a mess, but we went ahead and did it. But I just don't know how we thought we would avoid that.
Well, and just to remind everybody, the reason we did what we did is because the state actually said if we didn't, we couldn't regulate it at all. So,
yeah, we really have no choice.
I just knew it was going to be a disaster because they're everywhere.
And Ms. White Boyd, if I can just pay some compliments to the city manager and to our traffic folks. They have come up with a wonderful plan, preliminary, on these scooter corrals and bike corrals. And I expect that there might even be a presentation. I defer to city manager on that.
Oh,
but
so
they have been
Mr. Cowell.
working on this issue.
Yeah.
All right.
And I don't disagree with you.
And I hope we can get cars from parking across the sidewalk, because I can't pick those up and move them. And there are plenty. That is a habitual problem in the city of cars parking across the sidewalks.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I just want to remind council members that we do have another interviews are to start at 4, so if we can keep our comments brief so that we can still take a little recess before we come back for those interviews.
I'll be incredibly brief with my second item.
Okay.
I mentioned it earlier. The second item, I'd just like to ask that a letter be entered into the record. I know no action is going to be taken on this today, but on March 21st, the mayor and members of council received a letter from the Gun Violence Prevention Commission asking that Councilman Joe Cobb be reappointed to his position on there as soon as possible. I understand we're not taking action at this time, and there'll be further discussion in the future, but I just ask that a copy of the letter be entered into the record without objection.
I think it has been, and we've all received copies of it.
Okay,
All right.
thank you.
I do have.
Ms. Monroe?
I'll make it quick. One was, I just wanted to follow up on the video that was showed at the Congressional Cities Conference on March the 27th. Peter and Councilmember Velazquez and I were in attendance there, and there was more than 3,000 local leaders from across the nation that gathered in D.C. For this conference. And there were also several youth representatives among the attendees. We heard from distinguished speakers, attended and engaged in workshops on public safety, homelessness, mental health, violence prevention and intervention. We even had a special guest appearance from First Lady Dr. Jill Biden, who spoke at our afternoon session. She highlighted the importance of local leaders working with the federal government to help students get the education and training they need for the careers that they want. And also our NLC president, she stressed the importance of partnerships to help expand inclusive housing and workforce policies that can create abundant opportunities, and also emphasize that these partnerships from the private sector and the government aid in creating good jobs and building great cities. And one of the panel discussions of interest was, for me, was about the need for opportunities for workforce development for residents at all levels of education and training programs to enhance their skills to support cities. And with that, NLC and the Department of Labor announced a launch of called Good Jobs in Great Cities Academy, which will work with municipalities to accelerate their efforts to design, develop, and launch a workforce initiative over the course of the academy. And that initiative is now open for cities to apply. Bob knows I love to give him things like that, to apply, and they're taking up to 12 cities where they will select for these Good Jobs, Great Cities Academy. And I would encourage perhaps the city staff will review it, and if possible, apply for that. And also, for those who are following the marijuana legislation, there's a Cannabis Authority public hearing that's going to be convening a public town hall meeting on April the 19th at the Roanoke Higher Education Center. And that's going to be at 5:30 to 7:30 for the public to come and learn about the authority's mission and their roles in their current cannabis laws. And any additional information can be found on the authority's website. And also, this is with regards to an email we received from Darnell Wood about encouraging the city to give thought to summer youth programs for the inner city youth. I know staff has a plan regarding some activities for that, but I would ask that we also consider, with the renovation and the demolishing of the pool, with regards to what Mr. Wood had brought up about the snack bar and the bathrooms and the showers, that maybe that may give us an opportunity to look at some renovations there, to perhaps look at keeping the comfort stations. I know we talked the last year, there was a conversation from Mr. Wood about trying to put some bathrooms over in the park, but we knew we were near the dump and that would not be possible. But since the plumbing and everything is there at the pool, that perhaps there is an opportunity, since we do have amenities all around the park area, that maybe somehow we could try to salvage some of that and maybe make a comfort station to help with whatever we do in the park area. And then last, this is for the GRTC, for the president and vice president of GRTC. As you know, there was an article in the Rambler last week with regards to the Greyhound bus terminal not being in the transportation facility. And that was kind of disheartening, knowing that the Roanoke, that we as Roanoke City continue to have passengers that would be dropped off at the Virginia Transportation Museum. And that the part that concerned me most was that the council nor the public, and if it were, I stand corrected, I was only going by what was printed, that we were never advised that there was not going to be any Greyhound bus terminal for them to come in and have places to sit and wait on buses. So I know you may not be prepared to answer at this time, but since council is the stockholders, I would prefer that we do receive some kind of response or an update to that effect.
Well, I will say that Greyhound's business model changed, and so it was a surprise to all of us. The bus will continue to pull up next to the station when the station is complete, so it will not be pulling up outside of the Virginia Museum of Transportation.
But they will be able to go inside of the facility
They can
to
go
wait.
inside of the transit facility right now.
Okay,
They have full access to that as riders of Greyhound.
right, but,
No decisions have been made as of yet regarding the space that was to be the Greyhound terminal. But I will request from Mr. Price and management to bring an updated report to council.
that would be appreciated.
So, I'm sorry, Mr. Cox, so you're saying that's not accurate, what was printed in the Ramblin', that they will?
It was accurate in that Greyhound will, even if there is a place, as was mentioned, where folks can go to now, it is not staffed by, nor will it be staffed by Greyhound. So the idea of Greyhound operating a staffed facility is no longer available. They're not going to do that. It's not even clear, there was discussion at one point of doing some kind of like kiosk for tickets and stuff. It's not even clear they'll do that, so. Yeah.
Or
They
if
just changed
there's
their business
another,
model.
if there is another, I know it's not a franchise, but I know there was private owners that was running the Greyhound, which is no longer. But will the city be trying to seek, I guess, someone to run that, or if it's just not going to happen at all?
I think it would be wise to have Mr. Price
Just wait
come
on
in.
it, okay,
Yeah.
that's fine, that's fine.
Then we can give a more
Yeah.
full report.
Yeah.
Because there are a lot of
Yeah.
unknowns still about
Yeah,
that.
because I was just concerned that as stockholders, we were just not aware of what was going on with that until you read it in the newspaper. Thank you.
Well, and I think in fairness, the idea is to present accurate information to council.
Yes, and that's why I
and not
brought it
just
up in fairness
speculation.
to allow you, the
yeah.
president and Valley Metro,
Right.
GRCTC board to have an opportunity to talk
Correct.
about it. I appreciate
Correct.
that. Thank you.
All right, any other matters from members of council? One quick announcement, the Southern Christian Leadership Conference would like to announce an event tomorrow, April 4th, at the Martin Luther King Plaza and Statue on Henry Street. They'll be hosting a prayer vigil and memorial service in remembrance of Dr. King's assassination. The event will begin at 5:30 p.m. and should last about an hour. Item number 2, vacancies on certain authorities, boards, commissions, and committees appointed by council. First, we'll have a certification of closed meeting. Mr. Priddy.
I move with respect to any closed meeting that concluded that each member of city council in attendance certify to the best of his or her knowledge that 1, only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements under the Virginia Freedom of Information Act, and 2, only such public business matters as were identified in any motion by which any closed meeting was convened were heard, discussed, or considered by the members of council in attendance.
Second.
All right, thank you. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Ms. Sanchez-Jones?
Aye.
Vice Mayor White? I'm sorry. Sweep that again.
I'm not saying
Mr. Priddy?
aye.
Vice Mayor Cobb?
Aye.
Ms. White Boyd?
Aye.
Mr. Volleson?
Aye.
And Ms. Moon Reynolds?
Aye.
Okay.
All right, we have some appointments to read, and I'm going to do this in 2 parts. So for the first round of appointments, we have for the Blue Ridge Behavioral Health Care Board of Directors, the appointment of Michael Waldvogel to fill the unexpired term of office ending December 31st, 2024. For the Court Community Corrections Program Regional Community Justice Board, the reappointment of Tiffany Keffer for a 3-year term of office. And a residency waiver is required, and Mr. John Varney, also a residency waiver is required. For the Mill Mountain Advisory Board, the reappointment of Amanda Marco for a 3-year term. For the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board, the appointment of Kathy Carter for a 3-year term. For the Personnel and Employment Practices Commission, expiration of a 3-year term, a city employee or classified service, the appointment of Yen Ha, and a residency waiver is required. And then the reappointment of Crystal Smith as a city employee classified service. For the Roanoke Valley Regional Cable Television Committee, the reappointment of Sean Nolan. For the Regional Virginia Alcohol Safety Action Program Policy Board, reappointment of Adam Puckett, residency waiver required. Roanoke Arts Commission, the appointment of Becky Carr to fill an unexpired term of office ending June 30th, 2025. For the Roanoke Public Library Board, reappointment of Jesse Kaufman and Cassie Amon. For the Roanoke Valley Allegheny Regional Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy Committee, the appointment of Amanda Fullman, residency waiver required. Visit Virginia's Blue Ridge Board of Directors, the reappointment of Don Erdman and Stephen Lemon. And then I think that's it for this round. So, Madam Clerk, I'll have you call the roll, and if everyone would respond to all nominees and support the nominees.
Ms. Sanchez Jones?
All nominees.
Mr. Pretty?
All nominees.
Vice Mayor Cobb?
All nominees.
Ms. White Boyd?
All nominees.
Mr. Volleson?
All nominees.
Ms. Moon Reynolds?
All nominees.
Thank you.
Right, and those nominees are appointed. The second matter is an appointment to visit Virginia's Blue Ridge Board of Directors for the reappointment of Malcolm Quigley. And if you are in favor of this, just say aye. Madam Clerk, have you call the roll?
All right. Ms. Sanchez Jones?
Aye.
Mr. Pretty?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Cobb?
Aye.
Ms. White Boyd?
Aye.
Mr. Volleson?
Abstain.
And Ms. Moon Reynolds?
Aye.
And the appointment is approved. Thank you. All right, we are,
Excuse me, I think, I know you mentioned the residency waiver is required. I do think it would be appropriate if we vote that we're waiving the residencies.
we did,
For all of them.
we did. We just did that
No,
as
you
part of
just
the motion.
noted them. They were not voted on.
I move that we waive the residencies of the people who
Those
were
that were
mentioned and
called.
already voted.
I second.
Well, then I'd like clarity in the future because we have typically, when we've approved all nominees, we've approved the residency waiver along with that. That's my understanding. Is that correct?
Clarity should be, it should be, as clerk of over many years of knowing.
Well, I realize you were
I
clerk,
know,
but
but
you are
I
no
was
longer
prominent
clerk, so I'm asking our
procedure.
current clerk.
When we call the names, we'll say, you should say residency waived or required residency waiver at the time.
That's what I did.
At the time.
I think we did it for
That's
this
what I
one.
did.
Yeah.
I know sometimes I've heard it.
And that's what we've done
Yeah.
at every
Okay.
time we've done these appointments, so I don't know why now is different.
All right, I retract my second if it's unnecessary.
Thank you.
Thank you.
For the sake of argument, I'll leave it alone.
All right, we are going to take a brief recess. I apologize that we're running late for the first interview. We'll reconvene at 4:15 for our interviews for the school board candidates.